Submission to the Senate Committee on Social Affairs, Science and Technology, Bill S-204, an act to establish a national strategy for chronic cerebrospinal venous insufficiency, CCSVI. Request for formal apology to Canadians living with multiple sclerosis, chronic cerebrospinal venous insufficiency in relation to comments made by Senator Judith Seidman during the October 18, 2012 Senate Committee meeting on Bill S-204. Wolfville, Nova Scotia, October 22, 2012. Honorable Kelvin Ogilvie, Chair. Senator Judith Seidman. Re. Statements you made at the October 18, 2012 meeting of the Standing Committee on Social Affairs, Science and Technology in relationship to the Bill S-204. Senators Ogilvie and Seidman. It is with great dismay that I have listened several times to the recordings of the Senate Committee meeting on Private Members Bill S-204, October 18, 2012. As a person who has suffered over the last 2 decades with a chronic, debilitating, lifelong disease, I was greatly taken aback by Senator Seidman's awkward sense of humor when referring to venous angioplasty and her quaint bursts of laughter. Let me explain. I would invite you to watch the video link once again, which I have recorded for future reference, and see the attitude that was portrayed both in Senator Seidman's words and gestures as she made light of the term liberation. She stated, and I quote, "Their conclusion was that the subjective positive effects reported by about 50% of the patients could largely be due to the high expectation of patients for an intervention called liberation, at which time she turned her head with a wide smirk on her face. A significant name for the treatment," she said very sarcastically,
"can be largely due to the high expectation of patients for an intervention called liberation." Significant name for a treatment.
Only seconds later, we hear Dr. Barry Rubin state, "I should note that it was originally termed liberation by Dr. Zamboni, not because people are liberated from MS, but because the procedure liberates blood flow out of the brain." When Dr. Rubin states,
"Intervention study, I should note that it was originally termed liberation by Dr. Zamboni, not because people are liberated from MS, but because the procedure liberates blood flow out of the brain."
Senator Seidman clearly and audibly offers another sarcastic chuckle. I fully understand the need for debate on these issues, but the contempt shown for the word liberation as seen through the senator's gestures, body language, and short bursts of sarcastic laughter highlights her lack of impartiality in this matter. This outward disdain is horrendously offensive to a person who has suffered with MS for more than 2 decades. I cannot believe that a Canadian senator who possesses a high-level education and position of authority would take such a term so lightly and find humor in an obviously sensitive matter. Let's look at some of the names of the clinical trials for pharmaceutical research. Why is it acceptable for a trial of the MS medication Gilenya to be referred to as Freedom MS or Transform MS? Is there any humor in this? This medication has caused numerous deaths as reported by the Multiple Sclerosis Society of Canada, and it was touted by some of Canada's top neurologists as a safe and convenient way to treat your MS. Does Senator Seidman find the terms Freedom MS and Transform MS as amusing as the term liberation? I wonder if those who died from this medication found the words Freedom MS and Transform MS as amusing as Senator Seidman finds the word liberation. Why is it acceptable for a trial of a new medication, alemtuzumab, to be called CARE MS? Why is it acceptable for a trial of Tysabri, a medication that to date has caused permanent brain infections in 298 MS patients and caused to date 68 deaths worldwide, to be called Affirm and Sentinel? May I note that 21% of those diagnosed with this brain infection known as PML, or progressive multifocal leukoencephalopathy, die from this condition. The number of new cases and new deaths worldwide from this treatment increases monthly. I trust that Senator Seidman will find as much humor in the terms Freedom MS, Transform MS, Care MS, Affirm, and Sentinel as she does in the term liberation, especially since some of these pharmaceutical options have led to more deaths than that of venous angioplasty. My recommendations: I trust that in the future Senator Seidman will refrain from sarcasm when speaking on the topic of a debilitating neurological disease that affects the lives of more than 75,000 Canadians. And I hope and trust that Senator Seidman will take a moment to apologize to the Canadian public, and especially to MS or CCSVI patients, in the next committee meeting for making light of such issues. Sincerely, Christopher Elkenbrecht, Wolfville, Nova Scotia.